Too late for record.
Hello.
Hello. Hey there. I got it.
Yeah. Just
We
say
should have
hello
been
to.
recording from the start. That was
Oh
good
my
stuff.
God, I know that was such good stuff. And I was as you were talking, I was like, oh, this should be recorded so I can listen to it again. I was like, nope, why don't you just listen right now?
Right. Good.
So,
Just listen right now.
but you know what was really helpful too? And it was lesson 10 that we did on Saturday, because how I've been feeling like I can't hold on anything.
Right.
It's like just when I just sit and just do that. Like these thoughts don't mean anything. Just every single thought that's coming in, I don't just, and that this is gonna be my release. That these thoughts don't mean anything. It's so helpful. That's all I can do for the last few days. Just
right. Lesson 10 has literally been my salvation over and over many times in those early years. Like I would just sit and do lesson 10. And I would try to give it a little bit extra time, and I get through stuff, and whatever was going on in my head, boom, clear. It just cleared. It was like, wow, that's amazing. All I need to do is
amazing.
Apply it. I just have to apply the lesson, and boom, Shanka, it's done. It happens.
And in all sincerity, like I just thought that was a lesson that I did on day 10. Like I never really, applied it like since. You've said this a couple of times, and I've just applied it, like, especially in moments like I've been telling you, like where I just don't even know, but my mind is really trying its best to tell me that it's got a solution for me. And it's like, and it's just, none of it's working. None of it's like, just like, and just sitting and doing that lesson 10. And I was like, man, this has been here the whole time. Lesson 10 has been here the whole time. Available. So anyway. Thank you.
So here's the thing. Do your lesson for the day. If you're doing the workbook lessons, do your lesson for the day. But if you have a lesson specific, you haven't done it, have you?
No, I have, and it's so good. I want to talk about. Oh God, yeah.
But if you have a lesson, you pulled a funny face, and I thought, well, forgot to do my lesson.
No.
But if you have a lesson you like, you can do that as well. But don't do more than one of the regular lessons a day, right?
No, I just did lesson 10 because my mind was just, again, like I was like, oh, what is all of this? And I was like, let me not try to figure out what all of this is and try to, understand and compartmentalize.
Don't give it a name. Don't give it a name. It's just G. Okay. If it presents with a name, fine. But otherwise, don't rack your brain trying to figure it out. Right. Sometimes it's obvious, the energy. It'll be jealousy, or it'll be anger, or it'll be whatever. But sometimes it's just existential.
Exactly.
You can't really label it. It's just like, oh, I feel antsy and I feel whatever. Well, that's your awakening.
That's it.
Awakening. Literally, everything is God. Right? Everything is God. You can label it and call it something, jealousy or existential or whatever, but it's just God. It's only the ego that wants to give it a name. Right? Now, think of God as an energetic annoyance in you, right? The ego has trained you to be annoyed at the encroaching call to awaken, right? You feel it as anxiety. You can't put your finger on it. It perhaps doesn't line up to any of your worldly experiences, pending that you're feeling anxious about. You're just feeling anxious, right? But all anxiety is existential. But your mind will try to project it out into the world, onto something, and say, I'm anxious because, right? No. Just stop there. I'm anxious, right? You don't even have to call it anxious or anxiety. You can just say, I'm not at peace. I'm feeling something, right? And then just be still. Let something dawn on you. Let that energy move in you, right? It's the call to awaken. Everything is God, as above, so below. Don't listen to your thoughts that don't mean anything, because they're only going to tell you what it is, and they don't mean anything. My thoughts don't mean anything, so why would I listen to them when anything's going on? If Jesus is telling me my thoughts don't mean anything, what am I going to do? And guess Jesus?
Yeah.
I'm more enlightened than the guy that rose from death, resurrected, and came back to talk about it. It's like, come on. Snap out.
I know. Like, it's not a suggestion.
Right. It's
like
funny
a perhaps.
stuff, though. It's pretty funny. It's like
the lesson today, it's pretty, we're in that section where it's like, now I can't even remember what it is.
there you go. Ready?
Let me not deny
Truth, God, love.
God.
Right. Let
The
me
whole
not deny
thing.
today.
Yes. I had
Right.
to do it. Yeah, let me not deny the thought of God. That's what it is.
Right. Let me not deny the thought of God today.
And it's one of those where it's like, oh, I love it though. It's like, it's not my strength. It's like in the early lesson, it's not my strength. It's not my trust. It's God. It's like,
Yeah. Through God's strength in me that I can witness, forgive.
Your doubts are meaningless.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're on the Jesus train.
Yeah.
It's like just sit down, shut up, and go for the ride. That's
exactly.
That's the whole thing. It's like the conductor will be along and punch your ticket when it's time for that to happen. But until then, just sit still.
I'm running up and down the train.
I know you're trying to look out the window and you see something go past one of your thoughts, and you want to run into the back carriage so you can have a better look at it. It's just like, no, your seat's back there.
Yeah.
Go back to your seat. Sit down. Otherwise, when the conductor comes, he's not going to find you.
I'm going to find the conductor.
Right. That's not your job. The conductor find you. The Holy Spirit finds you, not the other way. You just say, yes, I'm getting on the train, and sit down.
Yeah. So it's relaxing and it's not. Yeah, this particular lesson today, I was like, oh.
Well, you're not used to sitting down on the train and doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Your mind has been trained to adjust. Every time something you don't like, I'll adjust to that. And then the next thing you don't like, I'll adjust to that. And then the next thing you don't like, I need a drink, I'll adjust to that. The next thing you don't like, I'll roll a joint, I'll adjust to that. You don't like, I'll have a superficial relationship to distract me for a few weeks, and then I'll adjust. And it just goes on and on and on. I'll go and see a movie, I'll adjust to that.
I'll buy another spiritual book and read that one.
Buy another spiritual book and see what someone else has to say about it. It's a conceptual answer to my problem.
Exactly.
And there isn't.
Yeah, and I'm out of moves. That's how
you say that. You say that, but every good alcoholic always says, I'm never drinking again.
I don't know. Okay.
At least 1,000 times, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I just see it doesn't matter. Yeah.
You're not out of moves.
I feel like it.
You're not.
I'm just doing the same moves over and over again. I mean, I see that. It's the same moves. Right. I got no new moves.
Good. So draw your circle. The time will come, and did, when you realize you got no moves left, and you're just like, all right, I need to be still and know that I'm God.
Yeah.
That's the only thing left to do, is to be still.
That's how I feel.
The desert for 40 days and 40 nights. Otherwise, what's he going to do? Keep being a carpenter? It makes no sense. Hang on, I've just realized I'm the savior of the world. I need to purify myself of my temptations. And he went into the desert, drew his circle to do that. And the devil showed up, figuratively. The devil showed up to tempt him, and he wasn't tempted. He stood there in his circle, stayed in his circle with God, and until the devil took him up to a higher place or whatever, but stayed there in faith. No food, no drink, whatever. There's a point in your mind where you realize you're all out of moves. I'm going to draw my circle in my mind, and I'm going to sit here. It's going to feel uncomfortable, because I'm not used to sitting here. All I've ever done is adjust and move about and think of another idea so I don't have to wake up. All right. This is a journey into fear. If it's not feeling uncomfortable, you're not doing it right. But that's why you need to do it with the Holy Spirit. If you just do it yourself and you leave the Holy Spirit out of the equation, you're going to end up terrified.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, no.
Right.
No.
Because literally, it's like that tiny moment of terror. Jesus talks, of course, there's a tiny moment of terror just before you remember your Father, before you remember the Creator, where you cross that threshold. It's like literally, it's like a precipice. It's like a vacuum into a vast emptiness, right? Every one of us has that within us as an idea of a gulf between man and God. There's not really any gulf because there's no lack in God. God is everything, including the gulf. But we've made this illusion of the void or the veil or the whatever, and going beyond it, it seems as if we're going to die or be sucked out of our body, right? And that's exactly what will happen. You will be sucked out of your body. Not that you'll be sucked out of it. You're not really even in it right now, but you'll awaken from the dream of being in a body, right? It's like, you know, when you see those movies and someone's had a heart attack or they've drowned or whatever, and they're trying to pressures on the chest, and all of a sudden they come back to life and they're like gasping for, like, whoa, what happened? What happened? It's like that. Like this, where you just like, everything just psychologically just like woo in your head, and you feel like you're just gonna lose it.
Yeah.
But it just lasts for a second. Once you actually go into it, it just lasts for not even in the twinkling of an eye, Jesus says. You know, when it happened to me, I didn't even have time to say, what the? There was a moment and then gone. You know, but the trepidation of facing that moment, because somewhere in your mind, you do know what's on the other side of the void, what's on the other side of the veil. You do know. That's why you put the void there. That's why you put the veil there. That's why you put all the blocks up. Right? You know what eternity's about. And it's like, well, if I can't be the boss of eternity, I'll be the boss of my own little world. You know? It's like, no, it's time to grow up. Yeah, it's like the prodigal son. It's time to grow up and realize that you're only meant for one thing. That is the creative extension of love. All this other judgmental nonsense, and it's like a tantrum kid. You know, little kids, and they throw a tantrum. It's like it doesn't do them any good. Like it doesn't do you any good. All it does is stress you out and stress everybody else out around you. And then when you finish with your tantrum, things just carry on the way they go on.
Exactly. Anyway. But you've made a commitment to that tantrum. Like you made a commitment.
Right, you've made a commitment to the tantrum. And the tantrum of time and space seems to be a good one.
And you know it, but it's like you can't, like I made this commitment to this and I can't.
The whole universe is a divine tantrum. That's all. It's like God's son having a tantrum into the mind of into eternity where all is one, you know, entered this idea of having a tantrum, at which God's son remembered not to laugh. And it's just like, I'm going to have a tantrum. I'm going to have the tantrum of all tantrums, and I'm going to lock myself away in my own dimension, connect myself to this tiny speck of dust thing called a body, put it on a planet in the middle of God knows nowhere, in the middle of this enormous universe, and hide. It's a giant game of hide and seek.
And I'm going to hate it.
Right. I'll hate it, and I'll blame God for
me. Exactly. See what you're making me do?
Right. But it's literally like a kid playing hide and seek, and they're hiding behind the curtains. And you looking for them, God's looking for you, and he can see your feet poking out under the curtains. But because he loves you so much, he's not just going to say, I see you there. He just pretends he can't find you. And he allows you to come out when you're done playing the game. It's like, oh, you hit so well, my son. Couldn't find you. I even sent brother Jesus to find you, and he tried. He gave me all the clues,
Shot us so. Good job.
Right. It's funny. It's just funny.
Until
So,
it's not.
Everyone else got sick of playing hide and seek, and they've all just gone and to have dinner, and you're still standing behind the curtain. I'm not coming out, not until someone
totally
actually
fun.
finds. Yeah, it's funny, but that's the game, It's like divine hide and seek, except everybody's got bored with it, and they've all gone to do better things. It's like, hang on, this game was my idea. You can't.
Exactly.
You can't leave me here behind the curtain. You have to at least finish the game.
It's so ridiculous. And I'm going to try
I know,
really hard.
It's a big tantrum. Anywho, don't adjust. Don't adjust to your pain. That's been the theme for the last, God knows, couple of weeks that we've been doing our sessions. And feel anxiety, feel pain, feel whatever, don't adjust to it. Everything is God. Everything is the activity of the Holy Spirit in you.
Yeah.
You invite the Holy Spirit in, he's going to get down in there and dig about in your dark stuff and go, hey, have a look at this with me. Hey, have a look at that with me. Here's jealousy I've found down here in the basement. And here's some envy, and here's some distrust, and here's some all sorts of stuff.
Oh my God, distrust.
I'm feeling all this stuff. I'm feeling things. Why am I feeling all this stuff? I put a lid on that crap years ago. Why? It's like, because the Holy Spirit's why.
Yeah.
You invited the Holy Spirit in. The Holy Spirit's doing what needs to be done to get your ass awake.
Yeah. I'm grateful. I mean, I've been feeling it, and I'm grateful.
But it takes a minute to learn to just sit in it and not to adjust to it again.
Yeah.
You got to let all that emotionality come up, and you'll feel it here in your chest. It's just like, I can't breathe.
I was gonna say,
right?
A pocket came up on Saturday, and it was like I recognized it as a pocket that I've seen it, and like I don't have time for this. This is too much. I've like really recognized like, oh, here it is again, and I have to like right now, like
right.
I see it, and I see it. It's not like before, like I see it and I don't really have time for this. This is not really anything that needs to be. It's like, oh no. And it was just like you described, like right here in my heart, like right here in my heart. And that feeling that I've been telling you about feeling like I'm being choked. It was like right there. Like when we were kids, we used to call it, you get a frog in your throat. Like when you want to cry, but you can't cry. So you get this lump in your throat. And it was that whole familiar feeling. I was like, oh, this is that trigger that I just don't want to ever look at. This is it right here, and I have to. So yeah, thank you.
But that's how it goes. Sometimes you feel it in your gut down here, and sometimes you'll feel it like rising up. In the East, they call it the Kundalini. You can feel this energy. And until you start to clear away enough, it tends to be a bit sort of stagnant or something. It's like it's got barbs and it's sharp, and it doesn't quite flow up and down smoothly, but then you forgive, and you remove some of those barbs, and you start to realize that the energy is just free flowing through you, and it no longer has that kind of stuck in your throat thing anymore. And it's as if you're a conduit, like it just clear. You feel clear inside all the way up and down. But of course, as soon as you make another judgment about anything, put another frog in. Oh.
Yeah.
and it'll find somewhere to sit. It will, and it'll invite all its other frog friends. So that's why mind training.
So it was so helpful. Saturday was so helpful because it was Saturday when this happened, and the meeting Saturday was like, the meeting Friday was like 4 hours long, and the meeting Saturday was like an extension of Friday's meeting, and I got that feeling like right before that meeting, and I was like, oh, thank you, Father, like, I'm going right into this meeting. They said we're going to have this powerful light session, and it was everything. And now, you know, a couple of days later, I don't know what's happening. And yeah,
good.
Lesson number 10.
I don't think we even did the light session, did we?
We did everything. We did what was needed. We didn't do the light session, but we did what we.
It's always perfect. It's always perfect.
Angela, I saw your little tear too. The recording will be up soon, so no worries, love.
You had a tear?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, going back to first starting with reading Course of Miracles, we were talking about anxiety and things coming up. As I started to read it, the anxiety did surface. So after a while, I would put the book down and I would say to myself, I'm not doing this right because I'm not feeling happy. All this anxiety is coming up. And I would leave the book alone and go away. And everything would calm down. And get this voice that said, you have to go back to it. You have to. And this would repeat itself again and again and again. And then the penny dropped this is the book, and I should be doing this. This is part of me that needs to be moved. And it took so long to get there. It's crazy.
Right. That's right.
And
that's why you have mighty companions. You have people to help you along the way, and like we remind each other. You know, we remind each other, let it go, forgive, be still, let that energy be taken by God. So it's just energy. Think of it as dark light, and you're exchanging it like a thing. You're flipping it over. The Holy Spirit's flipping it over so you can see the actual light of it.
Mm-hmm.
But in that process, there's generally a lot of anxiety and stuff comes up. A lot of energy comes up. So, but that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to bring up that, you know. You start reading about a whole mind, about a perfect mind, as Jesus describes in the Course, and you cannot not reflect back on your own cognitive sense of self, and it's just like, oh my God, I'm so far short here. It's just like, I thought I was a well-adjusted person, and I thought I had it all together, and I was nice and whatever. But it's like, actually, I'm a vicious bastard, you know, like I'm this horrible thing. And it's like, that brings up a great sense of anxiety. Mm-hmm. Because all of a sudden, the whole sense of self, your whole identity is threatened. Your whole way that you see everything is put into stark contrast with the way God sees everything, or God sees you as his loving child, and you don't know what to do with that. And your ego can't do anything with it, because your ego can't go beyond the level of time and space. The domain of consciousness is the ego's domain. Beyond that, it can't go, right? So you find a moment of existential anxiety, realize that it's got to do with something outside of the conscious domain entirely, and it brings anxiety because you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to reach it. You don't know how to bring about that shift, right? That's not your job. That's the job of the Holy Spirit, right? Your job is to just let him do his work, to invite him in, to abide with you in a space that you've cleared away, and let him do his work, and simply be grateful. Right? In your willingness to be grateful, it's done already.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that may take a moment in time and space for you to recognize that it's actually already done, because time and space is slow time. It's a very dense vibration, and the Holy Spirit works at a very, very high frequency of operation, right? Incredibly high frequency. You can't even comprehend of it, right? It's instantaneous. But here, we're trained to see everything at a very slow, you know, an energetic wave. It'll move up and down like this, like a radio wave. And ultra high frequency waves, like they go zzz, and they still move up and down, but they're much faster. The Holy Spirit's going so fast you can't even see it, right? Not with your body's eyes. You can't see what's actually going on with your body's eyes, because your body's eyes are a construct of the conscious level, and it's only limited to the amount of vibration that's able to be contained within it. Right? The Holy Spirit doing his work in you is just like happening so fast. All you can do is be grateful. It's like, wow, thanks for that. Thanks for that. I've offered all this stuff. I'll just have faith that it's done. And then boom, shanka. Usually it takes about 3 days. You'll recognize the result. Right? I don't know why 3 days. Ted always used to say 3 days. And from my own reckonings, whenever there's a shift, it usually takes about 3 days to go through it, and you start to feel a bit normal again, whatever normal is. But usually you get unsettled and a bit of disorientation for 3 days, 4 days sometimes. If I talked about it in time, like as an example, this week I've had crazy package of energy coming up, and I didn't want to label it or whatever, but I also didn't want to just fob it off when it came up straight away and do a healing. I've got this sense that I should just sit in it because it felt deep. It felt like there was more there than I was aware of, and I needed to just sort of let it fester, you know, let it brew or whatever. And then it took about 3 days, and finally I started to feel it in here. It was like, oh God, same thing as Tina. And it's like, oh man, I can't even breathe. This is just like starting to really get to me. And then I asked for help. It's like, all right, I'm ready to let this go now. And I started giggling and laughing. Pardon me, at work, and like having these little release moments. But it took, from the moment when I decided to let it go, it took, I think today's like the 3rd day or something, but even today I'm still had it coming up and letting it go, coming up and letting it, coming up and letting it go. And as we're sitting here speaking now, it feels like it's done, but then who knows? Oh, shh, don't hex it. Shh.
No. Jinx.
Yeah. But anyway, we shall see. We shall see what we shall see. But anyway, what's been going on with you, Angela?
Oh. Well, yeah, I did have a lot of stuff coming up a few days ago. Part of it, or some of it, was I was trying to get onto the Zoom on the Saturday evening, and I was struggling with Wi-Fi, etc. And I could feel, I knew I could feel it coming up. Anyway, it stayed with me till I think it was Monday, and it got very, I could feel it, but I could hear your voice sort of saying, get out your mind, get out your mind. And then I just sort of, I wanted to punch you to sort of say, you get out my mind. And then I thought, I feel like I was alone and I couldn't sort of get past this. So I put one of the recordings on, one of the light recordings you had, and I just sat back and I just did it. I just put myself there as if it was real, and I just did it. And I think it was about an hour and a half or something. And by the time I finished, I thought, I felt like I had started to come through it. And today was probably nearly the 3rd day, and yes, a lot. It's sort of, that bit's gone, right? Let's prepare for the next one. Yeah.
On to the next bit. That's it. No time to dilly-dally.
And that was it. And I do realise that this is where I am supposed to be, like with you guys, when and I am, as I say, the frustration sometimes when I can't get in, it sort of feels deep, and I know I've got to. This is why the recordings are great for me. They're great because I do watch and listen, and I go back and back. It's sometimes I know them that well. I know where I've got to go, which one I'm looking for, and I know I've got to sit with that one, and it sort of takes me through. It sort of lifts it. It helps me to understand. So I would be lost without. I would be lost without all of these. Definitely, definitely. Yeah, very helpful and take me through.
I was just talking to Tina the other day. I think they'll be a good resource for lots of course students. Because a few people have said to me that people they listen to teaching don't teach how I teach. And I like for the teaching to be experiential and active, for people to get activated rather than just sit there like a bunch of doorstops listening to somebody talking, you know. That's right. It's like you can listen till the cows come home, but you've actually got to step up and start putting it into practice yourself. So, oh, well, that's good. Thanks to God for that. I used to, and it's the same thing, like if you find yourself in a bit of a furphy, you know, go and pick up your book and do your lesson. I would rather you picked up your book and did your lesson than turn me on, actually. But, you know, whatever you're guided to do is perfect, I know. So, but I used to sit for hours watching the old man's videos, Dear One, the original Dear One, watching his stuff, and he's hard to hear. He's really, you've got to watch like 10, 12, 30 hours of his stuff before you start to get his vernacular, how he talks and what he's referring to and everything like that. But because he talks in a funny roundabout kind of way or an older style way, it makes you pay attention. You're listening, you're really, I know, you're really dialing in, trying to hear the way he talks, you know, but...
and he uses the camera. I don't know. I don't know why. Like,
he does this.
Reddy was saying exactly like he's talking, and then the second camera comes on, and he's like,
right. Because Mitch has two cameras in the studio where they did that. Right, Mitch does the music and cameras.
Cracked me up when I first saw that.
I've never seen him recording them like behind the scenes, but Mitch must to the camera there, and then he'll go and
exactly. I'm just like, oh my God, what is that?
It must be some idea of a professional kind of presentation. I really don't know.
When I first saw that, I mean, again, like you were saying, like couldn't really hear what he was saying, but I knew I had to like keep listening to it. And I did the same thing, like just listen to it over and over again. But that just always struck me, just, what is that? Like he's talking and then camera two. He comes in,
but it keeps you zoomed in. You see, it keeps you focused. It's like, why did he just do that?
And he does this thing. Well, anyway, have you ever listened to him, Angela? I dropped it in the chat. It can get lost in a lot of stuff.
Send her a link in the chat.
Yeah.
Mitch has put all of those videos on. Yeah, there's a whole channel now devoted to his teachings, and like it's beautiful. It's just the best ever stuff. But you gotta factor in that he's an older guy, and his era or his time frame is sort of like 1940 something, you know. So all the music he plays is Vera Lynn and all that sort of old World War II stuff. You know, that's what he likes, and that sort of jazzy gospel sort of. Yeah, and he's got that very. He's got that very dapper kind of like 1940s gentleman sort of, you know. So at first when I started watching his videos, I'm like, who's this old goomer? You know, like what's you know, like, isn't there somebody more up to date? And then you realize there's nothing up to date. Everything is perfect.
Yeah.
You know, and you just had to listen, and it took quite a while to actually hear, right? And that's post-experience. I'd already had the experience, and I'm sitting there. I knew this guy was talking about the experience. I knew he'd had the exact same experience I had, and he was expressing his certainty from that experience about the mind training of the course and how to use it to facilitate are coming together into the here and now and collapse the time of the wandering mind where it wants to, do this all the time. Getting to the hub, like he takes you on this whole kind of roundabout journey, and you have to follow him where he goes. And all of a sudden he's back at the start again. You're like, how did he do that?
And I'm mesmerized.
I know you get mesmerized. You either get really pissed off trying to work out what the hell he's talking about, or you get mesmerized and you try to stay with it. So I know guys that can't stand listening to him. Some guys are just like, nah, I don't relate to him at all. But generally, what I find is, and this is a true thing that happens, right? So you'll hear some teachers, right? Some teachers you won't hear. I've got a whole bunch of people on Facebook, for example, right, on my page. Some of them hear me, most of them don't. Right? Some of them have done enough work, read enough books, been to enough meditation things, talked to enough other people, whatever, that when I'm talking to them or when they're listening to one of my videos, they can sort of hear that I'm talking about something they're interested in. Right? Most people, I'll say something and they'll think I'm talking about whatever, like the weather. Like I have no clue what some people hear. It's like Jesus, right? So the disciples thought right up until the time, and Jesus even told them,
yeah,
not understand until the Holy Spirit comes upon you, right? Jesus told them you're not going to understand until the Holy Spirit comes upon you. And right up until the time when he told them that, they still thought that he'd come to lead them in a revolution against the Roman army.
Crazy.
Right? He was the king. He was the one that was going to set the people free. And he was, and he did, but not in the way they thought.
On a donkey.
Right, riding on a donkey. Oh.
This guy.
Right, yeah, that donkey guy.
Exactly. From Nazareth?
So,
is that where he's
actually,
going?
Mary was riding on the donkey, not Jesus, but anyway, I'm sure
Didn't
Jesus
Jesus come in with the donkey? I thought that was the whole thing. I
thought Joseph led Mary on the donkey, and
yeah, but when he came into, I don't know when.
Oh yeah, into Nazareth. Yeah, you're right. He did. Yeah. He'll come in riding on the donkey.
Like,
I don't know what the symbolism of that is, but maybe
that it wasn't like this big stallion. Like it wasn't this big like valiant horse or
stallions
something.
in the Middle East.
I don't know. What did they ride? What did the Romans ride? They just walked?
They would have had horses.
Yeah, so he didn't come in like that, like to go to battle. He came in on a donkey.
There has to be some rub it in your face symbolism for the donkey, I think. I'm not sure. We might have to.
I got you.
So Barbara, here's a cool thing. So Barbara Corley, who's in my friends list. I don't know if she's on your page.
No.
All right. So Barbara's just gone into a retirement village. She's 70 or something now. Barbara wrote these beautiful books. There's like 10 of them about the prophet Elijah, right? This is in when we were together in Byron Bay. She just got this whole download and just started writing. She couldn't stop writing it, right? And she was also, because she was I think she was a nun or something, but she went to Catholic college.
What?
A nun.
Oh, you broke up. Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think she was. I think she spent like 20 years as a nun or something, but she went to Catholic college, some sort of seminary school, and studied the Bible back to front, inside out, right? You pick her brain, she'd just like tell you whatever. She'd be the one person that would know the symbolism of riding on a donkey. You could probably look it up on YouTube. Why did Jesus ride a donkey? His sandal strap might have been broken. I don't know. But I think that was prophesized in, he probably just did it to fulfill the prophecy. The prophet of Moses, that the Savior would come riding on a donkey. Who knows? I'd have to go back and find an Old Testament, I think, and read the prophecy. Anyway.
Well, he wasn't a warrior, you know what I mean? Like he wouldn't come in like
No, that's right. Wasn't a warrior.
He'd come in on a donkey.
He wasn't a warrior. I started reading the book of John again the other day, and I just can't read it. I can't, like, there's no use for it in my mind anymore. It's like something in my mind just says, don't worry about all this stuff. You've already got the miracle. But I remember at one point reading the New Testament, and I read Matthew and
the tax collector.
Was he? Are you sure he was the tax? I always thought Simon.
I'll put 20 on it. Let's bet on the Bible.
What version do you have?
I don't know, King James, but I'm certain. I
have the modern New Testament from the Aramaic. It's a direct translation from the Aramaic language.
So look it up. Look it up. Yeah.
Matthew, oh my God.
Simon Peter's the fisherman.
Well, there was Matthew, Simon, and then
there were two Simons. Simon Bartholomew.
Two Simons. I'm
Simon
sure. Yeah, Simon Bartholomew.
Simon Paul. Peter Paul.
Simon Smith, doesn't really matter.
But he changed his name to Paul or Peter. I think it's Paul.
Yeah, Peter, Paul. The high priests were thinking of killing Lazarus. That's early on. Oh no, he's already got his disciples by then. Oh, I'm too far past it. I'm too far gone. Oh, hang on.
Lazarus.
I've had a Lazarus moment. It was rather prophetic. It was quite bizarre. It was just quite bizarre.
Do tell.
I don't really remember it clearly. It's like I had a moment of purification by fire as well, and I don't remember that clearly either. There's a lot of things that have gone by that, like 25 years ago now, that when I was trying to find, and when I say Lazarus, I don't mean calling somebody back from the dead, but I'm speaking the word and having something happen actually as I spoke the word, which confirmed to me that it only happened because I spoke the word. You know? It's like even the other day I was doing a video and there was a bug. This is kind of silly. There was a bug, like a horsefly. I don't know if you have horseflies in America, like the big flies.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there making my video out on the deck, and it's buzzing around my head and whatever. And I made a comment of it actually in my video, I think. And I said to the horsefly, I just looked at it and I said, "Be gone," something like that. And, you know, with the authority of God. And it went, you know, but like horseflies never go away until you kill them or until they get blood. They will just, once they know that you're a living, hot-blooded thing, they will not ever go away. That's the only one. I mean, it's not as magnificent as calling Lazarus out of the.
That is smelly.
I know, but it's kind of funny. I thought there's another one, but I had one. I can't for the life of me remember it. It was something like that. I just said something and something happened. But it's like, and then I had a moment with fire. I can sort of remember the fire one where I don't remember why I did it, right? But I went down to the beach one day. There's a bit in the Bible that says if you have faith, you can handle snakes and things like that. And there's another bit in the Bible somewhere. The fire of God will not burn you, or something like that. And of course, I don't know what book that's in, but it's something. I may be getting it wrong, but anyway, in my misinterpretation of it, I thought I'm going to go and test this out, right? And I went down to the beach and I dug a hole in the sand, like about that deep, and put some sticks and twigs in, and I set a little fire. And I had this big stick. You know how people walk on the hot coals and they don't get burnt?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if that's a trick or what, or if it's just fake. But anyway, I had this stick and it's on fire. I blew the fire out, pulled the stick out of my fire, and I drew it across my arm, right, in faith. And it's like, It's like, I have faith in God that I'm not going to get burnt. And I didn't get burnt, right? It was bizarre. I didn't get burnt. And then, like the doubt of Moses,
right?
so I did it again to see if it actually happened, and I did.
Which is doubt, yeah. Which is doubt.
I know.
Let me make sure I had faith.
I don't know if you can see it on my crappy camera, but I still have the burn scar there on my arm.
Wow. Oh yeah. I do see it. Wow.
Where I pulled the stick across.
There's proof. There's a body.
I know, but it's funny. It's like when you're going through your stuff, you know, it's like, and you get these ideas in your head, it's like of faith, and it's like, man, you want to have faith, and you want to be able to take a leap of faith about things just so that you know you've got faith. And it's like, because faith is its own reward. And so I went through this whole thing of pushing my faith or testing my faith and making sure that I had faith. I did all these crazy things. I can't even remember. There was a period of about probably 6 months where I couldn't think of enough things to do to put myself into situations where my only way out would be faith. You know, one of the craziest ones was climbing the mountain, but it was accidental. I didn't realize that it was going to end up being an act of faith. But climbing the mountain at Mount Warning, where I first saw Jesus, in my jeans and a t-shirt, and I had a leather buckskin jacket with all the fringes on and all these hippie patches and stuff on it. My friend had told me that on a full moon, right? So I don't know if you know the story of it, but it's in my book. But
you told it a little bit, but I never heard the full story. You told it a little bit on a Saturday.
Well, when I first decided to leave society, right, I realized that there was more to life than my job and everything. And I was incredibly frustrated. I'd already had a suicide attempt that had put me in hospital, and I just wasn't doing well in the rat race. And I knew I had to get out of the rat race. I had to get somewhere peaceful where there was people that were like me or like how I wanted to be, more like a hippie, sort of relaxed person, chilled, you know, peace man. That was the utopian vision that at a age of 18, 20, whatever, that I had. I didn't have another reference point for a peaceful life other than peace-loving hippies and everybody loves each other, hugs each other and all of that. I thought, why isn't life like that? You know, that's so nice that that's how that is. So I kind of pursued an avenue to try and track that down in this modern day world and involve myself in it, because I didn't like the life that I was in with the city and business and jobs and stuff. So part of that involved getting out of Brisbane, which is a big 2 million people kind of city in Australia here. And I went and bought a house, or my parents bought me a house in the country, right, in a town where there was about 60,000 people. And I was a half-hour drive from the centre of town on the crest of a mountain ridge. And on one side of the house, it looked down into this valley that, like, you were above the clouds and you would look down on top of the clouds. It was so deep, this big gully. And it went up the other side, and it was actually that ravine or that natural gully, chasm, I guess, or it's like the Grand Canyon, but nowhere near as big. But, you know, and on the other side was the state of Queensland, and that was the natural dividing topography, you know. But anyway, so on one side of my house there was that, and then the road came up to my house. And on the other side, I just had open expanse of farming land, no visible houses, anything like that. And there was Mount Warning in the distance. Mount Warning is, in Australia, it's the Aboriginal sacred men's mountain, right? So when boys come of age, their fathers would take them up to the top of the mountain and teach them all about girls, I guess. I don't really know, but whatever they did up there as Aboriginals, you know. And then there's a sacred women's mountain further down south in Victoria, 2,000 kilometers south. I mean, there's lots of sacred things that.
What is that one called? I'm just curious.
Mount Goolga.
The men's is called Mount Warning. Mount Warning.
Yeah. Well, the Aboriginal word for Mount Warning is Wollumban.
Ah, okay.
Mount Wollumban, and then Mount Goolga is the Aboriginal word for the women's mountain. But so anyway, when we're looking at the house, right, the real estate agent took my parents and I to look at this little house. And it was in my price range. I could work 3 days a week and afford to pay the mortgage and everything. So I was in a state of just total falling apart. I didn't even know it. I was addicted to drugs. I was drinking heavily. I was a mess. Like my life was a train wreck. But I was only using drugs and alcohol to stave off the meaninglessness of an empty life. And I was hoping that this would give me a new start on life and whatever. But unbeknownst to me, I'd become quite addicted to all sorts of anything. I'd become addicted to coping, really, and to adjusting. But anyway, so we're there on this day looking at the house. I had no shoes on. I'm dressed like in freaking rags. I must have been an embarrassment to my parents, who were incredibly conservative. And I let them talk to the real estate agent out the front of the house. And I went for a walk, had a look in the house. It was just a tiny little thing, cottage. And I went down. There was 3 little steps at the back. And then it went out onto the back grass area, which was this big hill going down to a creek. It was beautiful. And as soon as I stepped my feet onto the grass, they became magnetized to the ground. I could not move them. I tried to pick my feet up off the ground. I couldn't move. I couldn't turn around. And this is the second time that experience happened to me in my life, but I couldn't turn around. And for some reason, I didn't panic. I just thought, whoa, something's going on here. And I'd had people tell me it's a very high spiritual area, which is why I wanted to move there. And I thought, all right, just relax. Don't worry about it. Just relax. Like my feet literally glued to the spot. Could not move. It was like somebody driven nails through my feet into the ground. Like couldn't inch. I looked up and there's Mount Warning straight ahead in front of me. And this thought popped into my head that I have to go and spend the night up there. And I thought, I'm going to go and spend the night up there. And as soon as I had that thought, my feet became free and I was back to normal, right? And so I knew that whatever that was about was for me to make that commitment to doing that. And it took about probably a year and a bit before I finally got around to going. And I was talking to my next door neighbor, Gary, one day, and he said, did you ever end up going up there to that mountain and blah, blah, blah? I said, no, I haven't done it yet. I've been too busy, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, on full moons, they have full moon gatherings up there. All the hippies go up there and play music and whatever. And I thought, oh, that sounds awesome. So I said to him, can you drop me at the car park, right? So Mount Warning's about a 4-hour hike to go up. And the last 400 or 500 meters, it's vertical up a rock face. Wow. And they have you have to pull yourself up with a chain. They have a helicopter pad in case you have a heart attack where they can get the medevac helicopter. It's not an easy thing. Wow. I mean, it's easy enough, but it's not, if you're old and decrepit, you couldn't do it, right? But I couldn't now. I couldn't do it.
That's at the top.
Right. I couldn't do it now. So anyway, I put on my hippie jacket, my jeans. I had some sneakers, I think, and a T-shirt and whatever. And I had a string bag that I used to always wear everywhere with all my bits in it. And because I wanted to make something spiritual out of my night, I took some incense. I had a Mars, something to eat. I had a Mars bar. I had some grapes, I think. I had a few things. I can't remember what else I had, but I didn't really have anything warm. Anyway, when I got to the bit where the chain was, it started to rain and my suede jacket became sodden, right? As I'm going up the chain, I'm thinking, the sun's starting to go down, it's starting to get dark, and I'm thinking, this is a bit dangerous. And I couldn't hear anyone at the top. When I got to the top, I was the only one there. There was nobody else, right? And as the sun set, it became freezing, right? Absolutely freezing cold. And I'm drenched through. This rain it's like a drizzle. It's just a heavy drizzle. And it didn't stop. And then it became so dark that there's no way I could have got myself back down the mountain, right? I knew I was there. The top of the mountain, there's nothing to hide under, right? There are 4 platforms that the National Park Service has put into place because it's the highest point on the eastern coast, right? There are 4 platforms, north, south, east, and west, and there's a little thing in the middle that tells you what everything is that you can see in the distance on the horizon. And people used to go up there to sit on the east-facing platform and meditate, wait for the sun to come up and everything. And my friend Nanda, who'd spent many, many years in India, told me they used to do an open-eyed meditation on the Gunga River there. And sun would rise, they would stare into the sun with their eyes open, and you can stare into the sun for a minute without going blind when it's just broaching the horizon line. Once it gets up a bit, it's too bright. And anyway, I'd sort of forgotten about that, but I laid there in the grass, like there's grass about this long, shivering and just like freezing and thinking I could probably die of hypothermia. And then I remembered it. Oh, I had a candle. That's right. I had a candle which I was going to light because it's sort of like holiness or something. I lit this candle. It was the only warmth I had. I lit this candle and I had my hands over it. My hands was like numb from being cold. I had my hands over this candle so it wouldn't blow out. It's still drizzling rain. And the candle wasn't really any help at all. And I thought, I'm going to say a prayer. I really need to pray. Like I wanted to do something spiritual to cement my spiritual thing while I was up there anyway. So I prayed, right? I had a Native American friend from New Mexico, Joey. He was a Navajo Indian. And he and I had spent a few weeks together. He was traveling Australia. And he taught me about the four spirits of the four directions, the Great Spirit and the Spirit of the Four Directions. So one of the things he taught me to make was a medicine bag, right? This is a kind of a long story. A little medicine bag hangs around your neck. And I used to make them. I'd go to the abattoir and I'd buy offcuts of leather. They'd cut all the leather into usable things to go to the leather mill and stuff. And I'd buy all the offcuts. It was cheap as chips, you know, and I'd sew these tiny little medicine bags and I would sell them at the markets on a Sunday for extra income, right? So, but I made 4 cheap ones. I made 4 out of suede, which was just really cheap. And I wasn't going to sell them. I didn't know. I was just going to give them away. But I had all these medicine bags with me, these 4. And so I tied one. There's these little bushes, little shrubby bushes up there, not big enough to hide under. I tied one in north, south, east, and west in each bush, like a bush in each direction, sat in the middle with my candle, said my prayer, and I asked the spirit of the 4 directions to blow away the rain and to give me a nice clear night and make it warmer and all of this sort of stuff. And then because I was just starting to look into Jesus and read the New Testament and everything, I said a prayer for Jesus to make himself known to me. And if there was something there for me to look at, you know, and all this stuff, because I had a hodgepodge of all sorts of different belief systems, but nothing solid yet, right? Nothing I could really put my finger on. Anyway, so I curled up in the grass. Oh, just before I curled up in the grass to go to sleep, Joey had also told me that when I pray, I'll get a totem to tell me that my prayers have been heard. Right? Totems usually show up in the way of an animal, which will guide me or whatever. I'm sitting there thinking about going to sleep, trying to warm my hands. This big black possum, black as the ace of spades, just came from somewhere on the other side of the mountaintop. And the mountaintop's only the size of a double car garage. It's tiny, like it's basically a pinnacle at the top with 4 platforms. So I don't know where he came from, but he came over and he sat down right next to me, a wild possum, big wild possum. And I'm looking at him. There's just me and him on the top of this mountain, or her mountain. And I thought, I'm going to share my Mars bar with this possum. And it was one of those ones that's in 2 sections in the bag. You open it and you can have half now and half later. So I gave one to the possum. Right? The possum grabbed it with both its little hands and it's like eating into this sugary Mars bar, like loving it. And I ate the other half and I'm talking to the possum the whole time, like while we're eating the Mars bar together. And then it just finished and it just went off and did its thing. And I thought maybe I should follow the possum. Maybe it's got somewhere to hide, you know, but I didn't. I stayed there and I curled up to sleep in the grass, right? I don't know how long I was asleep. It took me a while to get to sleep, but I don't know how long I was asleep. The rain's still drizzling down. It's freaking cold. I'm shuddering. I tried to put my jacket on one of the platforms and crawl under the platform so that my jacket would be like a roof. But I got too cold, so I had to put it back on even though it was wet. And the platform had holes all through it. You know, it was like an open mesh platform. But anyway, so I curled up in the grass and went to sleep. Let's say 15, 20 minutes later, I get woken up by this wind, right? I'd already prayed to the 4 directions. This massive wind came out of nowhere, and it's like swirling. I can see all the little bushes blowing. Everything's going crazy on the top of the mountain like this. And I'm instantly awake, and I'm sitting there, the candle's out, you know, I'm sitting there thinking, fuck, how much worse can my night get? Ridiculous. And then all of a sudden, the wind stopped, the rain had gone, there was no clouds, and it was a perfectly starry night, just like I'd asked for.
Wow.
It was insane.
Wow.
It was just like, right?
Wow.
And I'm saying thank you. And anyway, eventually I went back to sleep. I was still wet and cold, but at least it wasn't raining on me anymore.
Yeah, stars.
And, I think it must have been about 4 a.m. I didn't have a clock or a watch or anything. I could hear all these voices from the track down below, right? It sounded like 3 or 4 people, whatever, coming up. I could hear all this murmuring and mumbling, and I could hear when they got to the chain, I could hear the chain clinking. And I'd already decided that when the sun came up, I was going to sit on the east-facing platform and meditate and pray and whatever. Like, just what else am I going to do up there? But I thought I won't be stuck up. I'll go to where the chain comes, and I'll meet them when they come up and greet them to my mountaintop and say hi, you know, in true hippie fashion. So anyway, I can hear them climbing up the chain. They're nearly at the top, so I go over. And I say to the first guy, hey, how are you going? I'm Dave, like that, and held up my hand to shake his hand. And he goes, hey, I'm North, right? And he shakes my hand. He says, I'm North. and then the girl comes up and she goes, I'm South.
Oh, my God.
I know. And then the other one was East and the other one was West. And we all stood. I said to them, I said, look, I don't really know what's going on here. I said, this is kind of strange, but I said a prayer last night to the spirit of the 4 directions to help me get through the night because it was miserable, whatever, north, south, east, and west. And I showed them where I tied the little medicine bags in each bush there. And the 5 of us stood there sort of like slack-jawed. We didn't know what to make of it. They were gobsmacked as well. They were like, you know, like, what? And so anyway, I said, look, I was going to sit on the platform there and meditate. I said, I'd be honored if you'd join me. And you know, they're obviously kind of spiritual people.
North, south, east, and west.
Right. And they said, that's why we've come up here. That's what we've come to do. We're going to sit and wait for the sun. So the 5 of us are sitting in a row on the east-facing platform, which only just had enough room for 5 people. And the sun is just about to come up. I can see the glow in the sky, and it's coming, getting lighter and lighter, but no sun just yet. And they're all meditating, and I'm thinking, right, I'm going to start meditating. So I had no clue how to meditate, really. I'd done a few different meditation workshops and classes and a few things like that, but I really didn't still know what I was doing with it, you know. So I thought, I'm just going to sit quietly. I'll just sit quietly. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I just sat quietly, and everything became very serene and very peaceful. And like, you know, the next thing you know, I hear this voice. It's this really high-pitched American woman's voice. And it says, oh, look, honey, there's people meditating. Take a photo. And none of us, because we're meditating, none of us had noticed. Other people had come up the chain, and they've got cameras. They've got all their Nike mountain climbing gear. They got like latex pants and like every kind of thing. And they're taking photos of us from behind. And I was kind of irate. I kind of like, who are these people disturbing our Zen? You know, like, just can't you see we're trying to meditate? And then I noticed the other 4 guys hadn't been disturbed at all.
Yeah,
right?
There you go.
I shut my eyes and ignored them, and I went back to meditating, and they wandered off to one of the other platforms, right? There's no room for our platform. And I could sort of hear them mumbling, and then they went away. And next thing you know, the sun comes up, and I remembered what Nanda had told me about staring into the sun as it rises, right? So I could feel the sun's rays on my eyelids, and I opened my eyes, and as I opened my eyes, the sun was like pretty much fully formed on the horizon, and I was just staring at it. and I heard this voice in my head that said, go wherever you want, do whatever you want, never let go of my hand. And just for an instant, a man stepped out of the sun, wow. And this came out towards me like a vision, a full vision. Whew, I still get emotional, but a full vision, and held out this hand, and the hand was blazing like the sun, the whole figure of the person. I couldn't tell who it was. I just assumed it was Jesus. It was like a person all on fire, like the sun, just like stepped out of the side of the sun and just went whoop and held out his hand to me. And I reached up, right? Obviously I couldn't reach it. It was like at the sun, but I reached up to take the hand, and then the vision stopped, right? And that's all I had to do. And I knew, I knew then and there in that moment that that was Jesus, and that I'd started a journey with him. Wow. Yeah, it was so powerful. And I asked them when they finished their meditation, I said, did you guys see Jesus? Did you hear these words? You know, I heard these words. They were so loud, but they were quiet. You know, they were in my head, but I couldn't not hear them. Anyway, we hung out for a while. We went down the chain together, and I went back to their place. They lived along the road to the mountain. We had mountain beer and stuff. And
they were real. I mean, not real, but
yeah, they were real people. They're just hippie people that lived there.
Wow.
But they heard my prayer. My prayer was heard, and they were given to. You know?
Wow.
It was so beautiful. It was full on. But it's like I went through that whole period of doing things for faith, of like actually getting off my ass and making decisions to do stuff. You know, like hitchhiking down the coast with no money. I had money, but I'd leave it all behind. I'd do it as an act of faith. I'm not taking my wallet. I'm not going to, there was no phones back in those days, mobile phones. I'm not taking my wallet. I'm not going to tell anyone I'm going. I'm just going to hitchhike down to see my friends like an hour and a half from here by car, whatever. And all of these sorts of things. And, everything. I was supported in everything, like totally supported. You know? But I went through a whole period of that. It was quite profound. And looking back, it was just like, wow. But, you know, faith is its own reward.
Wow.
It's like Moses, all the guys that followed Moses, there was a leap of faith to follow him. It was either follow Moses or be a slave, work on the pyramids, I guess, but not much of a choice. But exactly. you don't know what you're getting into. You know, you don't know who Moses is, really.
And it sounds like it's not much of a choice, but it's kind of the same thing that we do now. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And we go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we're acting like slaves. Like, well, don't really have much of a choice. Kind of do. You know what I mean? Like, just like they went with Moses.
Well, you do have the choice, but the thing is to choose joyously for God. I want to choose for God. I'm glad that I don't have really a choice, but I do have the choice to save myself time by choosing joyously. You know, because I know that by my faith alone, I enter the kingdom of heaven, right? I know that by my faith alone, I am healed, right? Jesus says that in the Bible. Unless you live by faith alone, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven, right? By your faith alone, are you healed?
Are you healed?
Right? Only salvation can be said to cure. You gotta find your faith, because your faith. It's like I had so many moments of crazy stuff I would do, even just little things like the fire. You know, like that's like people would look at me like, "What's this fucking idiot doing on the beach? Look at him, he's burning himself with a hot stick." But to me, it was meaningful. To me, it was like an act of putting myself to the test. If my faith was strong enough, I didn't get burnt like those guys that walk on hot coals. You know? But I started to realize through these little acts of faith that I was supported by something I didn't understand. I couldn't see it. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew there was something there supporting me, you know, especially on Mount Warning. That was the most profound experience I'd had prior to my enlightenment.
It's amazing.
That was like, you know, that was one of the biggies. I'd had one on Island, the same thing, where I literally couldn't turn around. I was looking for a spot to meditate one day in the rainforest, and I got carried. I got picked up under my armpits. It felt like, you know, when somebody picks you up under your armpits, I could feel unseen hands. I could literally feel like angels, or I don't, for want of a better word of description, I don't know what it was, but it was like somebody picking me up on each side and carrying me. It's like, come on, Dave, you're going too slow. And I couldn't turn around. For a second there was fear. And I heard a voice that said, don't be afraid. And so the fear just went. I don't remember whether I made a decision not to be afraid, just said, don't be afraid. And all of a sudden I had no fear. And I felt these hands under me carrying me through this bush track, right through the jungle, way past where I was intending to go, to this spot that was a little clearing on the top of a mountain area there on the island, not very high like Mount Warning, but just a big hill really, a little clearing, and I could see all the way up the Whitsunday Islands, up the passage out into the ocean, and everything was beautiful, the most incredibly beautiful spot. And I was overcome with this incredible urgency to build a stone circle when I got there. All of a sudden the hands were gone, my feeling came back, and I realized I had autonomy again. But I felt I had to make a stone circle. I didn't know why. I'd never made one before. I set about doing that. And as I'm doing it, I'm picking up these big stones out of the bush and making this little circle where I thought I'll meditate in the middle of the circle. And there was a big stone in the middle, which was like my altar stone, I guess. And as I was building it, I didn't count the stones, but in my head, I knew there would be 21. And when I finished, I counted them, and there was 21. It was just kind of like weird, but nothing else that day. That was like, I sat there on the rock, on the altar stone, and I had a bit of the Bible. I had a Good News Bible then, I think. I had the Bible, some food and whatever with my bag again. I always had a string bag, and nothing really happened. And I said a few prayers that were really kind of like half-hearted and whatever. And I ended up going back to the staff quarters. It was a resort island. I ended up going back to the staff quarters where I was working. I was a gardener there, and felt a little bit flat after that. But the whole experience leading up to it was kind of like there was something in it. Like I started to feel anxious, like going up the pathway when I decided on my days off, because I tried to meditate in the staff quarters, but there's people drinking, and it's and screaming in the hallways, and like young people in their 20s just having fun. They're staff, you know, island staff. It was impossible to sit quietly and meditate. So I thought I'll go up into the rainforest and find a nice spot, and that'll be my spot, you know. And I remember feeling anxious. I started to get out of view of the resort, going up this track, which was well maintained track by the National Parks Department. And I started to feel not right. And I tried to turn around to go back to the resort, thinking that I was having some sort of a incident, you know, and I couldn't turn around. I literally could not turn around. And that's when I heard saying, don't be afraid, and pick me up, you know. I couldn't look down to see my feet, but I would swear to you they weren't touching the ground, even though they probably were. But it didn't feel like they were. It felt like I was being carried along, like I was really light. My body was light.
Wow.
It was just so bizarre. And I seemed to be going really fast, like really almost
like levitating.
I know, it was strange. I wish there was like a little video log and I could go back. You know, maybe when I get to the Bardo, I'll go to the account.
How did I do that?
Yeah, what was that about?
They said that's what Yogananda did too. He had bad feet.
Really?
Yeah, they said he had bad feet, and he didn't want the people to see like him with his bad feet, unable to walk. Like they, you know, like his people would like carry him, so he would levitate. His feet just wouldn't touch. That's what, you know, that's the story.
Right. I had who was it used to look in the Akashic record? Edgar Casey. Edgar Casey used to be able to go into a trance and access the Akashic records, and he was always correct. His prophecies and his tellings were always 100% accurate. It was like he used to get vast sums of money from presidents and royalty and everything to come and so he can access their records, you know. Which, you know, good if you can afford his services. But I remember there was somebody, Ted did a talk on it. There was somebody, I can't remember if it was in Wisconsin or Byron Bay, that could also do that or had sporadic moments of doing that. They didn't know how they did it though, whereas Edgar Casey could actually, it was Brent. And he had moments of realizing that he had access to this kind of divine library and he could see what was his particular thing, you know. But he had, what's that? The ash, he had vibhuti, you know, Sai Baba makes the vibhuti and it comes out of the palm of his hands. He puts his hands up like that and he'll do that. And then the ash just rains from his hands.
Oh,
like,
I didn't know he did that. I didn't know, I never heard vibhuti. I knew he would do the jewels and stuff, right?
Yeah, jewelry, funny little trinkets. And I don't know whether that's just sleight of hand. I have no idea.
Yes, so I've heard, yeah.
But he used to make vibhuti, right? And my friend Brian went to India to, not Pune, that was Osho, went to wherever it was, and went to his ashram, and they have this big long courtyard and all the new people line up either side, and he walks down in the morning for the morning prayer. Right, all the new people line either side, and then all the people who are regular devotees, they have to sit behind, so the new people are the most important. Right? And so Baba walks down and he's saying his mantra, and as he says his mantra, he's conjuring up all these different things. He gave Brian a ring, right, with a picture of him on it. But he said, Brian swore to me black and blue, his hands were in the air, his sleeves was like falling down his arms. There was nothing in his hands. He was just manifesting out of thin air. And one of the things that he always manifests for the sadhus, right? So the sadhus, I think it's the Shivites, cover themselves in vibhuti, which is the ash of the dead, right? So they're allowed to live in the cemeteries, eat the sacred offerings on the graves. That's how they live. And they rub themselves, their faces and bodies with the ash of the dead people that are cremated. And they call it vibhuti. I think they mix something else with it so it sticks. I can't, mud or something. I can't remember the thing. But anyway, so Sai Baba manifests all this vibhuti from his hands. And being a bit of a skeptic, I always used to think, it's probably just a trick. You hear about these Indian rope, you know, climbing the rope, and it's just a trick somehow and whatever. But you never know for sure. And then one day, Brent, we were doing a live session in Byron Bay, and Brent used to have these moments of accessing stuff in his head. He was I would call him a kind of a weird cat, right? He was a beautiful guy, lovely. He was my guide for the first 12 months. But he was different. He was different to, probably in the same way I'm different to most people, but he was different, right? And when we used to do our light session, when it used to get to like fully feverish and like full on, like, and there would be lots of energetic releasing, people would have their hands in the air jumping around going woohoo, woohoo, and there'd be light and there'd be people moving in synchronicity and all sorts of stuff. People would fly around sometimes, you know, the spirit would move.
Wow.
It's full on. I've got a video of it once from up. We did a little one up here with half a dozen people, but that's what I mean. Like what we do on Zoom is like 10% of what goes on in our physical light session.
I want to be like, when is that going to happen?
But I'm standing next to Brent, right? And everyone's got their eyes closed and they're all like, woohoo, the music's playing and it's like everyone's just doing their thing. And I could feel this stuff on my face and I'm like that. And I look up and there's vibhuti falling out of Brent, out of the palm of his hand. He had his eyes closed. He didn't even know. And I poked him like that. And he's and then it stopped. As soon as he started looking at his hands, it stopped.
Oh, wow.
It didn't happen again. But there was about 5 or 6, there was probably about 50 people in the meditation. There was about 5 or 6 of us who had vibhuti all over us. It was just pouring out of his hands.
Wow. Oh.
It was just bizarre, you know, like, and I'm like, well, I can't really doubt Sai Baba now. I don't really know don't have any credible grounds to say the guy's a fraud.
Yeah, exactly.
But so much stuff. You could write a book this thick. So much stuff would happen with guys at the healing center there, like just metaphysical stuff that you can't explain it. It's all of the spirit. You know, like it was just totally
so helpful. Because we're so mired in the material, you know what I mean? It's so helpful to hear this.
You got to get your mind out of the box.
Yeah, but it's so helpful to hear from your mouth, you know, because I have been like wanting like this stuff. So I read all this stuff, read it, and it's helpful. It's so helpful to hear it like right from someone that, you know what I mean? Like, because I can twice remove.
It's got to be your living. It's got to be your every breath, every living moment of your life has to be devoted. Your spiritual journey cannot be a pastime. It cannot be something you fit around the rest of your life, you know.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, I feel you.
Right. But you line up to that. You know, you come to your spiritual path from like an orthodox, regular human life, and then you gradually true up to it in all your affairs, right? So through the course, all your relationships, your work relationships, home, family, friends, interpersonal and intrapersonal relationships with yourself all get healed and all true up so that absolutely everything in your life becomes a facet of that one diamond of like your heart sutra that just becomes your living, you know. It's just this incredible, beautiful thing. But it takes a minute for that to happen. It's like you guys have, I mean, I don't really know where anyone's at. I'm just speaking in general, but you guys are at the point where you're embarking upon the process of mind training. You're learning the principles, you're learning the concepts and learning how to apply them, which we're doing in our light sessions and everything else in our thing. And it's like, when we do that, I don't know if what I'm saying is the same thing as what you're hearing me say, which is why sometimes you have to hear it again and again and again. And sometimes other things have to occur. Other things in your lives have to be orchestrated for you to be able to like put the pieces in place, click this way and click that way to finally hear what I've said. You know, I've had people say to me, oh man, I remember you told me that like 5 years ago, and then walking down the street, bam, it clicked in. Something happened and I got it. I don't know where anyone's at with their thing. So I just sit here and I just say the same stuff again and again and again and again. But it all comes from the certainty of the experience that I've had that the Father and the Son are one.
That's what's helpful.
Right. I've had the experience. I'm awake. You know? I can fall back to sleep again. Sometimes I get distracted by things, but it's like my mind now just automatically gravitates back again. Automatically, boom, boom. You know, I'll see a red Ferrari go past and I'll be like, ooh, that's nice. You know, I'll give it a meaning for a second and I'll wonder how fast it can go and all this sort of stuff. And then a minute, oh, hang on, there is no world. Like my mind.
Yes.
Back. Let go of that. Look at that. Why did I want to give that a meaning? It's like, you know, it's like being a kid in a candy shop. There's no real right or wrong about any of it. You just sort of, you're in the dream, but not of it. But some things in the dream are still kind of, I wouldn't say they're impressive, but they're eye-catching, you know. What do you do with that? I'm in the world, but not of it enough for me. I think if I was in the world, but not of it anymore, I probably wouldn't be able to be here at all. I'd have to lay my body down. I have a great difficulty remembering things, and I have people come into my little shop and stand at the counter people that know me well, and I have no clue who they are. Even though there's a recognition in me that the way they're looking at me, they know me really well, and they're wondering why I'm not responding with their name and I had a girl today turn, hey, Dave, how you going? Blah, 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 blah. Started talking. And I'm looking at her going, who is she? Who's this person? Like, where do I know her from? It's like, she doesn't look familiar at all. It's like, as far as I'm concerned, this is the first time I've ever seen her. but she's talking to me like we've known each other for years, and we probably have. You know, I don't know how long I can keep up the facade. Anyway, keep going, push the limits, you know, really push your stuff. Like those lessons in that book, they're just basic prerequisite. Like, do what you got to do. Get out there and boogie on down with Jesus. It's like it's
That's
really
what's helpful, because the things that are said in the course,
yeah,
it's so high that you just assume it can't really be true. You know what I mean? Like, there is no world.
It is really true.
If you heard that, I mean, like sometimes when we're doing the first 50 lessons, I'm like, after someone says something, it's like, how do we even move on? Like, how do we even say the next line if that's true? You know, like if that's true. And
I know.
And, like,
that's because you're hearing it.
But it's crazy. It's like, well, how do we even just like, we got to just stop right here.
Right. But some guys will just read that book and they'll be like, none of it will register.
Because, well, I mean, in my own association, it's like, it's so high. It's kind of like, you know, just got to, if I got to go on with the rest of my life, I just got to go on. I can't stay here because I got to go to work. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't.
Right.
So again, this is all helpful. Right. Because to really take it on, like, no, he's not just, it's not hyperbole. He's not just saying stuff. Like, it's like, this is like real. And that's, I don't know.
It's actually how it is. It is.
Yes, I believe it. Like, I'm believing what you say. Like, believe this.
Right.
Like, oh, okay.
Last week I had this happen, right? This happens quite regularly. Course groups, you get all these people that want to conceptualize it and look at it with their brain, work it out conceptually. You can't work it out conceptually. And if you try to tell them they can't work it out conceptually, they get all upset about that, because it's like they think that that's all they've got at their own disposal, right? And when you tell them they've got to be miracle-minded, it's like, don't tell me I've got to be miracle-minded. I don't even know what the miracle is. It's like, good. That's the guarantee that you can be miracle-minded. As soon as you think you know what it is, that's not miracle-minded. That's control something, right? So I had this thing with this guy, and he put up a post and wanted something to it, and I think he gives me a little bit of credo because my posts and whatever. But anyway, so he's put up, has anybody in the Course in Miracles community ever had any of the experiences that are in the book that Jesus talks about? You know, and there's tons of stuff. And it's not that everybody has every experience, but some of those things are going to happen to you, right? And maybe others beside, right? Revelations, epiphanies, and visions and things like that. And I said to him, look, I said, I've had at least a dozen of the experiences that are in this book. I haven't known when they're going to happen. They just seem to happen at random. But they're always in association with my efforts. They're always like, I don't know if you would call them a reward or a confirmation or something, but they always seem to happen. Some of them don't seem to make any sense at all. It's like I was sitting there one day in session listening to Ted talk. I can't remember if I was thinking of anything, but all of a sudden, you know, the big harp, like in an orchestra, and somebody plays the harp, and it was like somebody ran their fingers down the strings of a harp all the way down. I can't make a harp sound. It's much more beautiful. But it was loud. It was like there was somebody playing a big orchestra harp right behind me, somebody strumming the strings down and back again, all the way along and all the way back, like a crescendo or descendo, whatever they call that. I spun around in my chair looking for who the hell was playing a harp. But it was loud. And I knew, because of the looks on everybody else's face, they're all focused on Ted, I knew no one else heard it. Another day I'm sitting there, right? Jesus talks in the Course about the harps of the angels and whatever, right? He also makes one mention to Gabriel's horn in the Course, right? The horn of Gabriel, I think. Gabriel's another archangel who heralds, I forget what he heralds now. Gosh, it was on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, Gabriel is the herald of, I think he's the herald of the Metatron. The Metatron is the voice for God, right? God's literal voice, right? God has no actual voice. God just is. God is the creator. But God has a voice that is like the Holy Spirit becomes the voice for God, right? And the Gabriel, I think, is the herald of, you're about to hear, you know, like, pay attention, God's, you know, that sort of thing. And I heard this horn. It was like a French horn, like a hunting horn, and it went like this in session. And it was like I was expecting hounds and horses to run through the thing. And again, I turned around thinking to see somebody playing a big horn. No one there. And I think Gina was sitting next to me. I said, did you just hear a trumpet or a horn playing? She's like, no. Holy cow. But like all of that was after my enlightenment. It's like when my enlightenment happened, there was so much stuff going on in me. Like just crazy stuff. It was like that enlightenment supercharged my ego, supercharged my awareness, supercharged everything. I couldn't stop laughing for about 4 or 5 months, maybe. Just ridiculous side-splitting laughter where I wish I could stop because my ribs are hurting. Like it was so bad, like hysterical laughter. It would go on for hours and hours and hours. And I remembered the time I'd spent at Nantian Temple, the Buddhist temple, and they talked about the 6 stages of Buddha's awakening. And one of them was a stage of laughing where, you know, the laughing Buddha. And the little thing that they talked about where you couldn't talk to Buddha because he was too busy laughing. Like he just couldn't. And it's like, that's what I was going through. It's like, holy crap, I'm having this stage. I couldn't remember the other ones, but it was just manic, you know, like the energy of it was just full on. I could take one thought in my mind, a thought like a garden pea, and then I could think about that pea. Peas grow on a vine. Vines are a kind of plant that look like this, whatever. Farmers grow peas, whatever. And I could put 50 thoughts together about peas and hold them all in my mind at once. Every single thought. I could have a whole conversation with somebody and hold the whole conversation word for word in my mind. Oh, wow. Like a savant, you know, like a savant can recall things, like a photographic memory sort of. My mind like just supercharged, and then gradually it started to fade away because I was not useful to anybody in that state. I was too enamored with my own wow, look what's happening to me today. You know, it's like the experience of the enlightenment of your mind really just blows you. It's like all of a sudden I'm using 5% of my capacity, and now I'm using like 50% of my capacity or something. I don't even know. Like Einstein used to say, you know, like human beings only use 5%.
Like Lucy. That's your assignment.
Like Lucy. It was like Lucy, yeah. I was like Lucy, like literally for a while. And I remember reading stories of other guys like Darjon. Same thing happened with Darjon. His enlightenment. His this is funny, right? So Darjon wrote this book called The Knee of Listening, Knee, The Knee of Listening. Listening is literally the whole thing. And it's this thick. Teaches you how to listen. It's a whole, I don't know if it's still in publication. If you can get it, it's a great read. I didn't read the whole, I had the book once and I think I read about 20 pages. Yeah. And it was just up, it's like the same thing with Ram Dass, right? So the first book Ram Dass ever wrote after his awakening, right? It's gobbledygook, right? So Darjon's book was gobbledygook. It's his mind trying to come to terms with what's just happened as the enlightenment, right? Trying to put it into context because he's just been blown out of the universe. He can't make sense of it. And if he doesn't ground it, he's going to go crazy and end up in the nut house with everyone else running around going, I've seen God, I've seen God, I've seen God, and not be useful to anybody, which is what happens, which is thanks to the Course in Miracles. So Darjon wrote this book that's this thick. 10 pages in, I'm reading this book and I'm like, I know exactly where this guy's been in his head. You know, it's like, I don't need to read anymore, you know. And I kind of wish I'd still had that book now. I'd like look at it and see where it goes. But,
it's like Lester Levinson too. He tells his story about how his mind was so like, and he had to read the Times, like the New York Times, to be able to come back. Like he just had to like watch television and read that because he was not useful.
Gotta get grounded.
He couldn't. He calls it what do he calls it? Gutter talk or something. Like he could not communicate to anyone because his mind was so open. And the same thing. Like he had so much energy. He would just walk the streets of New York. Like he just and would walk out of the house with like no money and said, I want to go somewhere. But I'll have no money. And he'd just walk out and someone would walk up to him and say, oh yeah, I owe you some or whatever. Like all of these really crazy things just happened.
That's how it works.
Yeah. Helpful to hear these things.
Right. It was exactly the same. I couldn't have a conversation with anyone for about 6 months after my enlightenment. It was impossible. It's not because I didn't want to, just because I couldn't put one concept and another concept together. My mind was like a merry-go-round of things just going.
I didn't notice who you were talking about.
Where? What?
The knee of listening. This guy.
Is it still available?
Mm-hmm. But I just saw a movie about him.
John.
I didn't know that's who it was.
Samaranch.
They call him something else, don't they?
Oh, he changed his name like 5 times. His name was John. Can't remember his actual name. I think his first spiritual name was Humble John, and then he went to Dar John, and then he went to Adi Dar Samaranch.
I think that was the one, Adidan. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, and then he just went to Adi Dar, and then they just called him Dar. So he's had all these transitions, and he I think somewhere in Fiji, and he had
yes,
like
that's crazy.
Yeah.
It was like a few months ago, maybe like late last year. They had this movie about him, and I just like. It was like a live, really? like a stream.
I'd like to see that movie.
It's not really like available. They just had like for a couple of days, we're gonna stream this movie if you want to watch it. And I didn't know who it was or anything like that. But it pops up every now and again. Next time it pops up in my feed, then I'll just let you know. But actually, I'm on their email. I get their email from them. So
okay, I'll tell you what. If you can get it and make it available to watch, because these sorts of things are helpful, because you are going to have these shifts in your consciousness. If you're pursuing this course and doing it properly, you're going to be having these shifts, right? At any tick of the clock, unbeknownst to you, you can have the moment of enlightenment just erupts across the consciousness of your mind, and you're gone from here, and you don't know what to do with that. Having other references of other guys that have been through it and can tell you what they did to try and get grounded again. You know, if I didn't have all the guys in Byron Bay that were there at that healing center there to support me, I would probably be a homeless person scribbling weird things on walls and just, you know, because my mind just would not have recovered. It's intense. It's beautifully intense. It's like, it's the most thing you can't describe how awesome and fantastic and beautiful the enlightenment of your mind is. Like God, being immersed in the presence of God, into the Godhead, is beyond, there's no words for it. You can't really talk about it. You can allude to it and you can point at it a bit and whatever, but it's the most fabulous. If I told you that it was going to happen tomorrow and all you had to do was throw yourself under a train, you throw yourself under a train. You wouldn't care less for your body. If Jesus said, hey, we're going to do that again tomorrow and all you're going to do is jump off this cliff, I'd be like, fuck yeah, I'm jumping off the cliff. My body would suddenly have no meaning whatsoever to me. It's just doesn't mean a thing. It's just pointless. The only reason my body exists at all is to help facilitate the shift in consciousness to bring about that experience of the memory of God. Now the memory of God has been fully restored to my mind. I have 2 reference points. This physical one that seems to be out here, and the eternal one that's in here in the back of my mind, just shining like a blazing sun 24/7. Like it hasn't left me since that day. The memory of God is just as brilliant in my consciousness or in my mind, in my awareness, as and real to me as all of this is just as real to me. Okay? Except the only thing is I know that this is not real. I've seen it all vanish.
Wow. Helpful.
I know, but that's without training, without help, without mighty companions and everything else. Those two reference points, the external and the internal, would have just fried me. I would have been crazy in the coconut. I couldn't be talking to you now. Bizarre. It's just bizarre stuff. So it's like, I think it was, oh no, it wasn't Louise L. Hay. It was somebody like Louise. Oh, it might have been Gangaji, who one of her, I'll use her, but one of the favorite quotes I have of this person, if it is Gangaji anyway, is don't fuck with metaphysics.
Yeah, don't fuck with metaphysics.
Don't fuck with metaphysics. Like, you have to be trained. You have to do it properly. You need guidance, you know. Without guidance, without training, you can just fry the bananas in your brain and you never come back. It's like having an overdose on magic mushrooms and every kind of psychedelic, everything all at once.
Well, you'd be cool, but I mean, you'd be fried, but you'd be cool. You'd be happy, but you would be not of any help.
Oh yeah, I'd be as happy as can be.
Yeah, but of no
like
help.
That happy guy. You know, there's a guy that wanders around my town. He's always smiling. I look at him and I think, apart from seeing my brother in Christ, but I look at him and I see this kind of simple-minded guy, right? He pushes this big, oversized plastic wheelie trolley thing, and he collects rubbish in the street and puts it in. He works for a employment company for special people doing that, but that would have been me. Big smile on his face everywhere he goes, picking up rubbish, putting it in the bin. He's fulfilling his purpose. I've never seen him not smile. He walks past my shop every day.
Oh.
And when I talk to him, I've only spoken to him twice, but when I talk to him, he always leans into his bin and pulls out the best thing he's got to show me what he's found. He's like, look what I found. And he's got this incredible joy about, like, one day he found a ceiling fan. It was still in the box. Like, I think some delivery guy dropped it off somewhere and he thought it's rubbish and put it in his trolley. And he held up this great big box with this massive ceiling fan. It's all
my heart. My heart.
I know. I wanted to tell him he should probably take it back and put it back, but I couldn't.
It is.
Like,
it's yours.
I was going to tell him someone's probably looking for that dude, but
you're okay.
What the hell?
Pull out their credit card and buy another one.
Yeah, exactly. They'll pull up the credit card. That would have been, I wouldn't just like that, exactly like that. My parents were quite worried that I would end up like that. They've been through hell. My poor parents, they're still alive, but they're in their early and mid 80s. But the amount of drama that I put them through in my life on my journey, psychological, suicidal, it's like there is no way I can make that up to them. It's like I have to make it up to you guys, you know, like you are them. It's like,
well, it all gets made up. It all gets worked out in the wash, right?
It does. It all gets worked out in the wash. So not too bad, but now
I wouldn't be upset at all if I realized that. If I wouldn't wait, I would. Why? How would I be upset if I knew that there were figures in a dream? How would that go?
Right, exactly. You would not react at all to figures in a dream.
Thank you.
You were dreaming, right?
There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, any questions? I feel that's been fun.
It has been fun.
Angela?
Great fun. Great.
All good.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, do the work. Do the work.
That's the most important. For the joy. For the joy.
Brilliant.
I really want to get into that. It's like if you guys ever feel like flying out in an airplane or whatever and come and do a light session, like I'm totally up for that.
Oh, it would be cool to fly out for a light session.
I'll teach you how to do it. We'll go out into the desert and do it. I'll teach you.
Oh,
if I don't have this, if I don't have this place, my house is on the market at the moment. We have a beautiful little healing room up there. It's like a big shed. We've refurbished it all inside with rugs and stuff, and we do it in there. But
cool. Well, looking forward to what's next for you. Putting it on the road, taking it on the road.
Yeah, me too. I had a visit from Ted last week, posthumously. Yeah, I had a visit from Ted. It's the second time past that I've been visited by him, and I'd have to go back through my posts on my Facebook page and check, but one of them was written by him through me, and I could hear him in my head saying what to write, like as I'm writing.
Oh wow! Did you credit him in it? Because I've been really busy. I haven't been able to.
No, I didn't. No,
I was wondering if I could.
He's no longer a Ted, just like I'm no longer a Dave. It's just mine. Christ, mine.
Have to point out which one it was, so I wouldn't be able to tell.
It was the one about. And this is funny because Annie, the exact same morning, like 10 minutes later. It was the one about not adjusting to your pain, right?
All your posts are like that.
Right, but there's a really good one I wrote recently, and then Annie wrote one about the pee under the mattress, and I don't think she wrote it, but I think she transcribed it from one of Ted's talks, because I remember Ted giving the talk about the Princess and the Pea, which is a book, right? So the pee under the mattress, so she puts another mattress to try and get rid of another mattress, and before you know it, and all the mattresses end up with a bigger thing because of it.
She still can't. She still can't. Still not comfortable.
Still can't get comfortable.
Yeah,
right?
All these layers.
Literally, the pee under the mattress is the call for awakening, and Annie and I put the same sort of almost identical. It's like I put it up like Ted was. I could feel him in me, like correcting me as I'm going and saying, "Say it like this and do it like that," and I'm like, oh. So, but it's fun.
Sweet.
You'll have that when you start doing stuff. You'll have probably me pop through, and I'll like make Jesus or somebody that's already.
Please make the correction.
The other side. Right. The advantage of having me, and it's hard. It's difficult to comprehend, right? So for me, anyway, difficult to comprehend. How useful. The old man used to say, dear one used to say, if you truly knew what you were trying to do, then my teachings would be of inestimable value to you, right? He had an affinity within himself that he knew how valuable what it was he was trying to offer, right? I have that too, but I haven't really connected with it yet. I know how valuable it is. These Zoom meetings are, how valuable the course is, how valuable any effort you can make. Like, if you truly could even get a glimpse of what it is you're attempting to do, you would simply give up absolutely everything to do it, and nothing else would you do. Right?
I heard that quote. I don't know. I don't. Did you say that before? Because I heard that. Maybe I heard it from him, but I heard that.
Right. I kind of said it before. I think just before.
All right. Right on. I heard it again.
But the thing that's interesting, or it'll probably be a head fuck for you, but it's interesting for me, is that I'm here and not here at the same time, right? In my own mind. I'm out of the dream, but my body residue is still here in the dream. The avatar is still here in the dream. It's the same for you guys, right? You're not here either. But in your own mind, until that experience dawns on your mind, you're not aware of it. It's just a concept, right? It's a bizarre thing. It's a bizarre, because there was a time in my mind where I didn't know I wasn't here either. And if you had told me, I could have understood it conceptually, but I couldn't have connected with it. Now I connect with it, but I can't bring the full capacity of what I'm aware of to be expressed through this avatar, because it's done without words. You know, it's kind of like, I really want to just go,
Oh,
and just give you everything, but because the body is a limit, even in transformation, it's still a limit. You know, otherwise 2000 years ago, Jesus just could have clicked his fingers and like the whole thing could have ended and we'd be all back in eternity now. But there's still this whole process. You got to go through the process, because that idea of free will is so sticky. It's like that little tiny mad idea. It taints everything. It's really just like, even if I could give you the whole kaboom like that, you wouldn't hear it. It's like, I didn't hear it. Ted used to sit there and talk for hours and hours and hours. And for the first 2 years, I swear I had no clue what he was talking about, even though it used to make sense. I'd nod my head and I'd be like, yep, yep, yep. But I wasn't hearing it at a level that was deep enough around the experience I'd had. I was still all up here astral. Woo, yeah, Ted, that's great. Woo. It's like you said, reading the 20-minute book. And it's like, sometimes I read a line and it's like, I can't read anymore. How do I read past that? It's like, it's so profound and it hits you. Boom.
yeah. How do you move?
How do you even move from the spot? How do you go on with life after?
Yes. Yes. Like, nowhere else to go.
And yet we manage it. We manage it, you know.
It's like in that movie What the Bleep, where he's talking about the two things where the atoms are in the two, or the things are in the two different spots. And he goes,
he says, split.
So exactly. He says, and we're scientists, and we look at that and we go, wait a minute, there's two. It's no, this is over there. It's not. There's two different. They're in two different places. He says it's so, the mind, it's just so crazy.
Right.
People they see that and
it's
they go
one
to lunch.
Thing in two places.
Yeah, exactly. But they see that. They're scientists. They see it. They know it. They see it, and they go to lunch. Because you just can't. It's like, I can't go on with my life.
You can't process it.
Yeah, I can't go on with my life. Your life has to end. It has to stop. But it's like, okay,
right.
I gotta go home. I got kids. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh.
Right.
So it's the same thing with that, when those lines, some of those lines in the course, it's like, we have to stop. What are we doing? We have to just stop.
Right. That's where you do the light session. That's where it becomes active, and you have the moment. You know, those moments are accumulative, and they relieve you from the disbelief and the anxiety around what the hell do you do with this teaching.
Yes.
You can't just tell someone there is no world. I can tell you, and I can tell you, I can tell you. You can hear it conceptually. You can understand it reasonably by, like, if God's everything and God's formless, how can there be a world?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can understand that conceptually, but to actually understand it experientially, you have to have these. And until then, it's going to be this paradoxical kind of conundrum that what do I do with that?
Exactly.
I might as well just go out and get a job as a truck driver and just forget all about it, because there's nothing I can do.
There's no world.
You literally need a miracle. You need a miracle, right? Miracles are your right. Purification is necessary first. So we're about the purification. We're doing the work. We're practicing forgiveness. We're doing the lessons, the workbook, the whole thing. We're into it. Just stay with that. Just focus on that. Don't worry too much about the other stuff. The other stuff's kind of good to know, because it's like it'll give you this kind of sense of comfort that other people have been through this and done this. You can do it too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I remember before I found the course, I was going in and out of temples and mosques and churches, talking to all the ministers and monks and like as many people as I could, right, about what the hell the universe is. And they would say things to me, you know, and like I would hear it, but I didn't know what to do with it. I would hear it, I didn't know what to do with it because my self-experience hadn't caught up with what they were talking about. You know, it was like, okay, other things have to happen in my life first, so I can actually hear it and actually experientially hear it. You know, so that it makes sense, drops in, puts a piece of the puzzle and all of that sort of thing. So, but that's the same with the course. Just because it goes for a year doesn't mean that it's only going to take a year for all that, those pennies to drop, you know.
I tried to do it in less than a year.
Right. Impatient one.
Oh, I know. I don't got time. I don't got a year.
You have to learn patience as well.
I am learning. I mean,
it's good to
yes,
be
I
eager
do.
and determined, but you have to be tempered with patience.
No, I get my lessons. It doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Turn up, do your lessons. That's it. Turn up, do your lessons. Turn up, do your lessons. Doing that 20-minute book, it's more valuable to you than you can possibly even imagine.
Yeah.
Like that 20-minute book is just, you know, as soon as you turn off this Zoom meeting, you're going to go back out into doing whatever, or maybe go to bed, but you're going to do whatever. It'll be gone. And you'll be like, oh my God, I can't remember what we were talking about now. What? And the chaos will start again. Right? These Zoom meetings, and when you're reading your lessons, and when you're talking with other guys about salvation, or just hanging out with guys that are in this with you, there's kind of like this cocoon of light that you enter into, this like bubble of grace. For the moment, you're alleviated from the pain and the struggle of the world, right? Only so that you can learn, right? At some point, you've got to leave the nursery and get back out into the world, having learnt what you've learnt, taken it with you, and begin to apply it to the old chaos, which is why sometimes after an intense period of learning, when you go out again, you go into the world or go and see your family or you do whatever, you come across those same old patterns. It's like, oh my God, my mother always, you know, have you had enough to eat and things. It's like, when is she going to realize I'm 57? Right? And all these little family triggers that from childhood, my mother's still telling me to eat Brussels sprouts, you know, like never going to eat a Brussels sprout, but like these triggers, but it shows you where you're at. You know, family is one of the best sort of like screens in the dream to look at, to see where you're actually at with your own spiritual transformation. It's history. Oh, pardon me. Anyway, I'm done. I think I'm just babbling on now.
Helpful.
Okay. Well, I'm glad.
Right.
So, thank you.
Thanks for showing up, Angela.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I love you. Be happy. All right. Catch you Saturday.
Peace. Yep, Saturday. Friday for me.
Friday for you.
Love you. Bye. Mwah.